Good morning to you all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for being here. I see everybody in the chat already. Before anything else, Frankie Paliguacci, $9.99 to the Sal Greco Show. Says, God bless everyone. Keep exposing the truth, Sal, which is what I'm trying to do here, Frankie. But that's plenty of cafecito for later. I see shout out to Hassan Mo, who mentions con sofrito. Good morning to Sal. And the Jack. Well, I'm not going to mention that name, but he mentioned Jack there too. But good morning to you, Hassan. I see Matt O'Brien in the chat. I see Lone Silencer, Brooklyn Girl, NYC. Thank you all for being here. Guys, if you can go to our YouTube channel, if you're watching us there, you can like, share, and subscribe. Also, press the notification button as well. If you go on there, you're going to see the Sal Greco Show YouTube channel. Before I explain what's going on there, I have been uploading all the previous episodes. Episode 53 to 157, I believe, if you remember, was on another channel, we'll say. So I have to upload every single one of these because they mysteriously disappeared in the last few days. So I'm up to episode 105. You could watch everything up to 105. So 106 to 157, I still have to put up. But I will, every one of them will be up on that channel. You could still watch them on Rumble at the Sal Greco Show Rumble channel. But on the YouTube channel, I have to post these up one by one. And it takes a while. So if you can, you could check it out there. I mean, it looks a little flooded, the channel, but really it's just I'm backlogged. I'm putting all the episodes up, including one that our guest from today was previously on. That one mysteriously disappeared, so I had to post all of those up again. So the Sal Greco Show on YouTube, you could like, share, and subscribe there, and also check out all the old episodes. They're going in their own the playlist that says the Sal Greco Show Season 1, 2, and 3. So just doing a little house cleaning and explaining this to all of you. Also, there's the salgreco.com. If you can, you go there. If you feel like supporting us, or maybe you want a T-shirt, there's the store. And somebody did buy the shirt, actually. That shirt, the Joe Cop shirt, I don't know how that's not one of the top sellers right there. Everyone should want this shirt. It's like I'm literally talking to Joe Cops all day with their nonsense. And I made a shirt for you guys. So if you want to be a hairbag, you can wear that shirt. Or if you want to laugh in their face, you could also wear the shirt. It goes both ways. So you can buy that on the salgreco.com. You go to the store, salgreco.com/store. There's a couple other shirts, there's mugs. I'll have more stuff up later for that. As we get, we add to that store. And also, if you can, you can click the support button. That helps us out as well. Anything you send goes to fixing the operation here where we're trying to move forward. I'm thinking of having boots on the ground in locations, but you gotta be able to pay people, and nothing's for free in life. And this is a funded by you operation. I don't have big sponsors here. So if you can help us, be greatly appreciated, and we'll improve the product by tenfold. salgreco.com. Also, if you're on Rumble, you go to Rumble, the Sal Greco Show Rumble channel. You can like the videos there, hit the Rumble button, follow us there, and also hit the notification bell there. And of course on X at the Sal Greco. That's my handle. That's where the show is broadcasted. You could click the like button and share this out also with all your friends in a low information bubble. So once we get that all out of the way, let's hit the news, because that's what people want to hear about, right? First off, there was a whole thing I posted about the soccer mom. So let's see what I had to say about the well, no. This is later. Get the video up. There's a video about what happened with the soccer mom had finally acknowledged all the cops involved in the heroic efforts of the incident that occurred a couple of weeks ago, where there were incendiary devices in vehicles, by the way, and she forgot to put the bomb squad out there and all that. But she actually tried to do the right thing, and we still uncovered some other things. So let's play this video. A few days ago in New York City, there was a terrorist attack that was thwarted by the New York City Police Department concerning 2 amateur terrorists throwing an IED device towards police officers. Now, there was heroic efforts by Chief Edwards and many others, but it's very concerning that now we're hearing that the NYPD Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, aka the soccer mom, was unaware that Officer Polgarin was in the hospital. Now, he was one that was made the initial contact with the perpetrators. And then Officer Cardenas, that actually was injured while arresting the second terrorist, was also hospitalized. And there was no outreach in either case from senior management in New York City Police Department, executive management in the police department. After days of mentioning this over and over again, the police commissioner finally acknowledged and honored all officers involved in this incident. But why wasn't she made aware of what happened? Why was the police commissioner unaware of 2 officers in the hospital in regards to taking action stopping terrorists? What is going on in the police department? And soccer mom, look, whether you know it or not, the people underneath you are just undermining you. Yeah, so what we came to find out, of course, there was a nice picture. They were all in the police commissioner's office up on the top floor of One Police Plaza. And she actually did the right thing by honoring everyone. It wasn't just, Bill Bratton or Ray Kelly telling her, you just need to, mention the chief. And, that's the very old way of doing things that really didn't work. So she finally acknowledges these people. But what she forgot to acknowledge, and this is why the soccer mom, this goes both ways. She's the soccer mom for a reason, because many people, even the executives she thinks are on her side, or she thinks are friendly with her, or she's covering for their fraternization, going to the DL, Manhattan and that little nightclub, they're completely undermining her, because these 2 cops were in a hospital. Did any executive reach out to them? They weren't even mentioned in that meeting on the Monday morning that they had. All the no executive. Remember, Hansy, the chief of department, that's his real nickname there. He should have informed the police commissioner and others about what's going on. The chief of patrol could have said something. The actual chief of transit, Galato, was there. No one brought this up to the police commissioner that 2 officers were in a hospital. There was no outreach. There was nothing. So you have to understand that things are really brewing behind the scenes. I mean, one officer literally got punched arresting the second terrorist. So there's a complete disconnect with this woman where she doesn't know what's going on. So you would think a police commissioner would, one of the first things they would do is ask. Like, they don't even, if you're just going on the word of 1 or 2 of your people, you're in trouble, because they could completely spin you around constantly. And that's what's been going on here. They completely spun around the soccer mom, and although she acknowledged them correctly, she didn't even know they were in a hospital. There was no outreach from the police department, upper management, which is just a terrible job by the police department. It just shows that, everything going on, she's also being undermined on top of it. So is everything completely her fault? No, but you also can't be trusting everyone, because look what they're doing. They're taking advantage of you. Then it was a second incident. The second incident was this off-duty shooting. So let's play this, because there was a lot of facts and about a minute and a half that I put out that I know people did like spectacles online about. So let's see this. So there was an off-duty shooting in the Bronx. It involved an officer of the Intelligence Bureau who also works from Gracie Mansion to City Hall and vice versa. But the facts of this shooting have been a little murky. Initially, we had learned that this officer had been following a couple of suspects in a vehicle in regards to a stolen vehicle, which belonged to this off-duty officer. Now, there was a shooting, and the shooting is that this officer got to the car, and I believe they're going to say that there was a weapon in the car, but from my sources, there has been no chatter of a weapon in this vehicle. So this shooting, which the video is pretty bad, is a bad shooting. Officer Baez, the Daily News is reporting, has been suspended. Allegedly, Officer Baez was a little intoxicated. And if that is the case, that would be a major problem in this shooting. Overall, doesn't seem like a good shooting. And you almost want to feel bad for the soccer mom because she just can't catch a break. This is pretty bad. This is pretty bad. So in the beginning, a lot of people want to say, I did the right thing. Somebody stole the car. No. The story gets crazy as time goes on. So the actual video, and I know you could get banned or whatever for showing this whole thing, but in the video, you see him approach this vehicle, and there's 3 people in the car. And, of course, there's, gunfire. He starts shooting at people in there. Now, problem here is the only way that this will be justified, which I'm telling you will never be justified shooting, even off duty, whatever. First of all, he followed this person in the vehicle saying he stole his vehicle. Now, I don't know why you would off duty go and try to be like Rambo when you could just have the precinct cops. They'll go and chase the car down and do what they have to do without just arrest these people. Now, he went over there. I don't know if they're words, but the only way this can be even remotely said, okay, he's justified in doing this is this person has to have a firearm or something, a weapon. I mean, this is the corner where this happened. And there is no record of these individuals in the vehicle having a weapon. So if you're firing at this person, you're going to be in the wrong. Now, the other side of this that no one's talking about is the part that the allegation here was that Mr. Baez might have been a little tipsy. So that would add, even more furor to all of this. Is why would you go and do it? And the question really is, why would you jeopardize a great gig you have on the job? He worked at Gracie Mansion and City Hall and Intelligence Bureau. What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't understand what this guy, and here's a good question. PBE 777 says, Sal, how was the officer able to track his own stolen vehicle? Was he using NYPD assets? Was he authorized to do so? You bring up a great question. I've been asking the same things. You off duty taking this kind of action is really, it's just, they don't teach you this for a reason, because you're going to need backup. You need other officers. You would just call the precinct. You easily can say who you are. You're slowly driving behind this car, and then they'll come and say, listen, I'm at this location. I'm following this vehicle, yada, 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 yada. You'll see like 10 cars come, and they'll surround this vehicle. Why that didn't happen versus going ahead. And the thing was, I believe this officer followed this vehicle, and eventually he did a car stop, I believe. The guy stopped the car. And then the worst part is that I believe one of these people is virtually brain dead. that's a big problem. Eric Sanders says if he is unfit, the discharge is inconsistent with department guidelines. And that's 100% true. And if you don't know this, on every off-duty shooting or any shooting in general, they now give you a breathalyzer. You cannot be, intoxicated for any reason involved in any shooting, or that's a problem. So that little allegation that was snuck in, remember, he was modified right off the shooting, which normally they do, unless they think you're 100% in the, but they usually do just to keep you, you just had a shooting. But it took a while to get him suspended. Now, I don't know what the reasoning is behind the suspension, but I can tell you this looks like a future indictment. And it's a real shame. But, just like that, if you make a decision like this, you really got to think 10 times over what you're doing. But I said enough about this. So now I'm going to have my guest, and I'm going to have him chime in on this because he's a former lieutenant in the Yonkers Police Department. We've had him on before. We'll welcome him back to the stage, Anthony DiMaggio. My fellow Paisan.
Paisan, what are you doing?
What's going on, Ed? I mean, look, I know there's a lot. You just saw this. I explained it. What were your initial thoughts on what do you think about how this is handled with the off-duty shooting, which is just a little crazy how this all went down?
Yeah, well, never a good idea. It's never a good idea to get involved in something like that while you're off duty. It's just a car, man. It's just a car, It's like,
but wouldn't you think calling
right
is the way to go? It's just better than trying to be Rambo and trying to settle things yourself.
Yeah, you never want to get involved in something off duty. You just don't. You want to try to avoid that at all costs. The only way you're going to do that, only way I'm pulling my gun out when I'm off duty is if someone's life is in danger, mine or somebody else's.
So here's the thing, though. On this case in particular, I have good sources. They're saying there's no weapon in this car. They don't have anything. This is just, I don't know what this guy was seeing or doing or thinking. That's the problem with this. Because you were right. The only way you would pull this gun out is if there's a threat of someone's life. Where does it say that that this person did that? I don't know what this is a really, and initially a lot of people were on his side, but then when you start really hearing the other parts of it, because if there's no gun in this car, it's going to be a bad shooting. There's got to be
we like to defend each other in our profession, but you can only go so far, man. There's certain things you just can't help somebody with. You like I said, it's just a car. You have to do that math. Maybe he was a little drunk, but you don't get involved in something. You have to weigh risk versus reward. They were stealing his car, right? Basically, what was going on?
That's what he's saying. That's what this allegation is.
All right. So you call it in, and you let the uniforms handle it, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, PBE 77 is this because a young man shot by undercover cops at the bachelor party at a bar in Queens in 2006. I forgot his name. I remember that incident. I don't know if that's what this guy was thinking, but Junebug says cop has no effing common sense. And Eric Sanders, who gives you his legal opinions here, remember the actions have to be consistent with benefiting the taxpayers, not self-interest, which is correct. And I think he should have, you hating Monday morning quarterback and anything, but there's a reason I always tell people, you just call 911, get backup. Don't, because, and then you could be, what if this person had a weapon? You might have a gun. They might have a machine gun in the car. They don't care. Like, they don't even know who the hell you are. You're coming up with a gun. It looks crazy tactics. I mean, Joel Ramirez says sometimes you have to call it what it is. It is. That's what we do in the Sal Greco Show. So now to get a third take on this is the producer, the co-host, the wingman, Jack Stern. I mean, Jack, you and I were talking about this. What do you think about what you saw there with this whole off-duty incident?
Well, it's especially problematic because you have someone who, by all accounts, was settling a personal score with professional property, right? Like, you can't go to the scene where your car was allegedly stolen with the intentions of getting it back. You need to be involving the police. The patrol supervisor for the Bronx should have been notified about this, that there was a missing vehicle. It seems like he felt entitled and enabled enough to take matters into his own hand. And that's really the biggest problem, because if he had contacted people within the Bronx Bureau and they had put posters out and they had gotten the car back the right way, it wouldn't have ended with him shooting someone. Now, all of a sudden, he's in the wrong, whereas if he had gotten other cops to go and maybe handle the dispute, it would have ended a lot differently. So I really do blame the officer involved, Officer Baez, and this sadly has become an all too familiar theme, especially in the NYPD. It reminds me of the Jeremy Reichberg case that took place about a decade ago when Reichberg, Anthony, if you're unfamiliar with it, had a couple diamonds and pieces of jewelry stolen from his store, and he called up members of the police department to go handle the situation and get them back off duty. You're not allowed to abuse your privileges when you're off duty, and that's really what happened here.
And and here's the thing. He said, Eric Sanders said he was in the 5-0. Actually, the command is within a quarter mile away. It is true. And you're right. PB77 is mentioned. This is who he's trying to talk about, which is the incident. These are the kind of incidents that everything usually gets referred back to. Sean Bell says, yes, Sean Bell, NYPD tactics around undercover cops drinking alcohol while on a case and discharge of a weapon, etc. That's one of the
things that the shrink accused me of.
Of doing this or drinking
evidence. No, not shooting somebody, but getting drunk and letting off rounds. Excuse me?
That's insane. Because that should never happen, because they actually have to here. There might be evidence of that.
Right.
Oh, but in that case, they'd have to have a long trail of these things saying, oh, you were drinking, you have this, that you have this instance underneath your belt, this instance underneath your belt. And to go back to the police commissioner, right? Someone, PBE77, I think, said it best again, is that the chief surgeon usually is the person that would know what's going on, meaning they know that the officers are in a hospital, if they were admitted, even if they walk out of a hospital. They just stopped a major 2 terrorists that were running. God knows how bad that scene would have went. The police commissioner still has to know what's going on, because she has to inform the public. And then you would want the police commissioner to call you and say, you did a great job. Nothing. That's why these people were all agitated behind the scenes saying, what the hell is that? I mean, I don't know if you know this other case. We have a poor captain right now who was being held in Queens. The guy defends his own family, right? And they're charging him with choking this 67-year-old pervert that was doing all kinds of things to this family member of his that he didn't know about. And he walks in and sees this guy, and all of a sudden he's in handcuffs because the chief of internal affairs was fraternizing 24/7. He decides that it's better to arrest this captain. And he held him in Queens, and the chief of Queens had to oversee this because this guy decided to do that. These are the things going on underneath this woman.
What are they charging him with?
And I mean, this incident is another one. I mean, she can't catch a break because this is a horrible incident. But,
Yeah. What are they charging that captain with?
Assault. Also obstructing the guy's. It's a stupid. What are you doing charging that captain? Captain Bowen, who, by the way, has a GoFundMe. And, if you want it, you can help him out. He's suspended right now. He's got to go look for a defense attorney.
Sal, the page was taken down. His GoFundMe was taken down.
It was taken down. So I wonder why. But
just look for it. Yeah.
So this happened in his own home. His own home?
It's happening. It could have been either it's his home or the home where his daughter is at, or now whatever it is, his daughter, whoever it is in his family. He actually has a daughter in the NYPD. Oh. So they're gonna start targeting her. So that's another problem. She's, I believe, in a 112, 112 or whatever it is that she's in. And I got to see. So how did this even happen?
So he raised $21,000 on his GoFundMe page, and then for some reason it was taken down.
Did they do that?
By GoFundMe. So I guess it was reported by someone. Maybe it was because it violated guidelines because Bowen was being accused of a crime. I mean, I'm just speculating and spitballing here, but either way, it does seem peculiar to me that it was taken down in such a short period of time. And mind you, Ant, he was defending a 15-year-old relative who was being sexually assaulted too.
Yeah, I mean, unless there were some extraordinary circumstances that they just haven't released, I don't see him really having any trouble down the road. I mean, look, she seems like a pretty good person. She might be in a little over her head, you know, because she wasn't a cop.
The soccer mom, yes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And right here, Eric Sands also says, well, now we'll see how the DA handles it. I may have more to say about that soon. So there's a lot that was mishandled in that case, and he should not be, you know, facing that. But I'm just giving you examples of what's going on underneath the soccer mom, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you don't know this, also Anthony, yesterday, City Council, they had their hearing, the budgetary hearings they had with all of the staff. You actually saw there's a Tanya Kinsella sighting. Remember, she's the first commissioner. She's the one in charge of the overtime, by the way, allegedly. I mean, she was in charge under the whole scandal. She's still there somehow. So yesterday, though, they started asking her, Julie Menon, she's the Speaker of City Council. And if you remember, she had two cops that were supposed to watch her. We're doing all kinds of frat house behavior and fraternizing on duty and doing other things.
One got drunk, at which point Menon actually reportedly called Commissioner Tisch and had the individual removed from her personal security detail. Yeah. That's an aspect of this situation that's not being reported on as well.
Yeah, and the inspector, Rana, who's like I'd say the way he's the Richie Taylor of the Arab side of things. So Richie Taylor claims to be the king of the Jewish community. Rana claims to be the king of the Arab community, but both guys are well hated. By the way, Richie Taylor hasn't been seen with the soccer mom, so I'm hearing a lot of things there about Richie Taylor. Richie Taylor might be headed down the road of a criminal case, from what I'm hearing, but we'll see what happens with that one. But Rana is he's the Richie Taylor on the flip side, and he does all kinds of. But he was in charge of these two cops, by the way, and now. He got transferred. He got transferred with counterterrorism, so he's moving up.
Right. Yeah.
He's failing forward.
F up, move up. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Failing forward. But so Julie Menon, who also I'd like to add, is very good friends with the soccer mom. They're talking about the Cralo cards in the NYPD. Now, if you go back, let's go back about a year or plus ago. I actually posted this whole thing on X specifically about the Cralo cars and gave details. You see, there's Mark Bussell, the CEO of Brooklyn South Inspections, and he worked for disgraced chief of department. I don't know what he's doing. And he had an unmarked car. And he mentions the Cralo, and then it's his right-hand man, the lieutenant. They shouldn't have it. And I literally laid this all out. And then yesterday, Julie Menon, who's the Speaker of the City Council, starts asking questions, and it's almost like I could tell you this: they both know each other, and she's telling Tisch it's like a soft landing, you know. Tisch is saying, and this was in the Daily News, the result of it was galling. She testified to the City Council. We had executives at multiple 3, 4, 5 knitted out cars assigned to them personally. Knitted out vehicles, sport, a range of luxury upgrades and accessories. It was out of control. There was also vehicles, she said, that had been assigned to units not involved in confidential investigation, which is the point of the unit, the confidential rental and leasing office. So this was part of the whole thing, and I have reported on all of this and who did what. You could go back and listen to that. She also said, we took the Cralo vehicles away from the executives. We ensured that executives were assigned a single car and not multiple cars. And we also made sure these vehicles were only being used in the investigative commands. That's all lies. It didn't appear that they were doing it under the radar. Their bosses had allowed them to do it. It was approved. What does she do about it? She said the news reporter there were 1,000 such vehicles being used by the NYPD, and the department spend about $1.2 million a month in federal funds to lease them from rental companies. And this is from Rocco Parascandolo in the Daily News. As you know, he likes to take my work and act like he did it. So that was from that. But this Cralo thing, I had posted this, and it finally spun around. They finally mentioned this. But if that's the case, how did Henderson? Remember Chief Henderson? He had a car. He had more than one. Kaz Daughtry at the time, he had more than one. So she didn't do anything. It was all like two friends covering for each other. Julie Menon knows the soccer mom, and they were very, and it's like a choreographed back and forth. That's what it looked like to me. That's what they were talking about. So I get you guys' take on it.
Yeah, having more than one car per boss that's unique. I've never heard of that before. Everybody in my department had one. Once you get past a certain rank, all the captains, I think, contractually have one. And then if you have a special gig, usually comes, like my daughter's mother does, usually comes with a take-home car. But having more than one is how do you justify that? I don't know. How many cars can you drive at one time?
Maybe two if one of them is self-driving. No, but it's important to understand the connection between Julie Menon and Jessica Tisch, because they both come from bureaucratically defined families, right? Obviously, Julie Menon's also married to Bruce Menon, who's the co-founder of Crescent Heights, a big real estate company headquartered in Miami Beach with properties in New York City as well, right? And his mother actually co-founded the idea of creating like car insurance and then also having boat tags and putting the same tag on your truck and all those stuff. So like these are people who are from very wealthy families and are connected to very high-ranking people, and they protect one another to a very large degree. And I almost wonder how much they're framing the narrative, right? Like they know that there were cops who abused their overtime privileges, but do they want to hang these guys to try and make an example out of them when other people are actually guilty of much more egregious behavior? Look at what happened a few months ago with Tiffany Howell and her DUI case on the Taconic that we've talked about so much, Anthony, right? We haven't heard pretty much anything about that, and it involved the chief of department and his office, Michael LaPetri. Apparently, there's a connection between LaPetri and Tisch. So clearly, this administration is in cahoots with one another when it comes to narrative framing, and it's easy to understand why when you have a billionaire Harris running the police department and a very powerful industry individual and, obviously her husband and what he does as the speaker of the city council. These are not people who are representing everyday citizens of New York City.
No. I'm always telling people, every time I come on the internet, I try to get it in that you see, over the past couple of decades, they've been adding layer after layer of redundant, scrutiny and transparency to the patrol level, the uniformed cop on the street. Mm-hmm. Okay, I feel like there's enough there already. Where you need the cameras now is in the chief's office and in the commissioner's office. Because I tell people all the time, if you had any idea how FUBAR, the things going on at those ranks really are on a day-to-day basis, you just wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe your ears, As someone who was like middle management, like me, like, lieutenant, I got to see it more closely than the lower ranks did, and certainly more closely than the public did. And I went through it, obviously.
But like, what do you think of like an executive having luxury, these
it's
cars?
crazy.
That's taxpayers paying for that stuff.
Right.
They ripped the black box. There's a black box in there. You couldn't trace these things. She's sitting there saying all this stuff, but she is the head of the entire agency, Anthony. You can't sit there and say, what did you do about it? Right. These are your executives. They're your executives. This is happening under your watch. So why are you just sitting there saying, oh, we found out? What are you doing about it? Didn't
she say we cut everybody back to one car? She said that, right?
One car. But what about by the way, there are numerous unmarked cars. She forgot to mention this, Julie Menon. There's numerous unmarked cars that have a bevy of summonses, meaning red light tickets, all kinds of red light tickets. You know why?
Parking citations.
Parking. You know why? Because certain executives will go unnamed for the moment. We're running red lights, racing to wherever it is they're going. Who's paying for that? It's not going to be the soccer mom out of her own pocket. It's not. You know who's going to pay for it? The taxpayers. That wasn't even addressed. And that's the Cralo cars. That's the Cralo cars that they were doing that with. So why was that not asked yesterday? Who's paying for all those? And you've seen it over and over again. They mentioned the summonses on these cars. Then there's the Cralo cars. And then they were handing these cars out to their wives, their girlfriend, their family members. These are NYPD vehicles that are designed for law enforcement purposes. And you're acting as if it's your personal car. This isn't just, we're going to, only one car, an executive. It's, no, we need to discipline people. And if there's any kind of criminal charges, we're gonna hit you with them. Why was that not even discussed yesterday?
Yeah, right. And you know what? They're probably all going to get a pass for all that behavior too.
And Anthony, you were in middle management and you kind of talked about witnessing this. Once you get up to a certain level in any of these departments, you're effectively bulletproof. And that's where the problem starts and ends here, because they need to cut down on the Cralo cars. Not everyone can have a Cralo car. So instead of ending the program entirely, they're going after the low-hanging fruit to try and put an end to it, at least in terms of the public and what they're seeing. But in reality, all of the executives who are well-connected and have a good relationship with the commissioner and Julie Menon, they're going to be doing whatever the hell they want, right, regardless of what the commissioner is saying publicly. They're going to have multiple cars. They're going to be protected. They're going to have a rational reason for why they're doing what they're doing. And as such, the problem is not solved. And this is, again, the problem with having two bureaucrats running the police department and running the city council, because they operate with a very specific set of rules for one class of people and a different set of rules for everyone else.
Yeah, well, the way police departments work and just, bureaucracies more generally is that the higher ranking you get, and especially with positions where it's entirely discretionary for the mayor, the police commissioner, police chiefs, inspectors, whatever, you get promoted based on the discretion of these super high up people. And when you get promoted, it's usually because you're the most spineless and willing to take orders, to follow orders, unethical orders, whatever, without question. And that kind of complicity, that kind of loyalty has to come with perks, right? So you have to be able to get away with certain things. We had a chief on our job who only lost his vehicle. I mean, he was, I'm not going to start using
yeah, don't.
He was, no. He was, basically having extramarital affairs in the car. He got caught.
That goes on now. It goes on now with
of course, sure.
Favorite people.
He still didn't lose the car. It wasn't until one of his Goomie's husbands caught up to them at a diner. Now they're ramming each other with the cars in the parking lot.
Jeez.
And that got back to the mayor, and then he finally lost his take-home car. And
all for that.
And paid no serious price for it whatsoever.
Well, he kept his job too, obviously.
Yeah, well, he got demoted to captain, but they gave him a precinct command. He made a bunch of overtime and retired.
Yeah, and he has a nice pension. He's standing on the golf course somewhere now,
right?
Regardless of what happens.
I'll tell you. So there's more to what happened yesterday. So Jack, I know you have a video. You have some other stuff regarding the soccer mom being a few things, but the Cralo thing is just I was on top of it, and he still had no answers yesterday. Oh, it's news. No, it's been news. It's been happening. No executive, no one was terminated. Nobody's being charged. It's just, we just took one vehicle. And the taxpayers are still on the hook for the car, for the total amount they paid for it, and all the summonses they got and all that crazy stuff. And by the way, they got to pay gas too. Who's paying for that? Taxpayer. Remember all of this when you're moving forward. So what other moment was there? There's other stuff too.
There was a lot that happened at the city council hearing. We just talked about the Cralo cars, but remember, the hearing was more so about officer attrition, people leaving the department, and then also the gross misuse of overtime. And the commissioner did a horrible job when she was getting interrogated by Oswald Felice, city councilman from District 15 in the Bronx. So let's first hear their back and forth over the departures within the department and how Tish framed the turnover that's taken place.
How many police officers have left the department, though, and how many have we gained? Could you provide actual numbers for the last 2 years?
Okay. I can give you the net numbers. So
the net number.
Calendar year 25.
What the hell is that?
We were net up. We added 758 officers. In calendar year 24, we added 12 officers. And in calendar year 23, we lost 280 officers.
Okay, so just kind of a brief explanation, and then we'll get into some math here. What she means when she says the net, because I see a lot of people are asking about that in the comments. The net is the total number of people that you get in the department or leaving the department. In other words, if you have 100 people leave, but 200 people coming in, your net number of new officers is 100, right? That's kind of like a demonstrative example here. So let's take a look at the actual statistics, since the commissioner didn't decide to present them when she was asked about the number of people that were hired by the department. So in 2025, the department hired 4,000 new cops. In 2024, they hired 2,600 new cops, roughly. So that's about a 1,400 new cop increase. All right, let's move on. So 2025, they got 4,556 new cops, but the net number was 758. So that means that the police department actually lost 3,298 police officers, right? Then let's move on to 2024. You get 2,632 officers that were hired, but the net number was 12 new police officers. So you had 2,620 cops. So pretty much what I'm trying to show by showing all these graphics is you're actually having to hire, proportionately speaking, many more police officers every single year because of the number of people who are leaving the job. And this shows that she's trying to frame the problem is all of the new officers receiving overtime. But clearly that's not the case, because the majority of the overtime expenses, which are eating up the payroll, come from senior level officers who are sergeant special assignments, lieutenant special assignments, and of the supervisor rank or above. Very few of them are actually police officers. So that's kind of the mathematical financial statistics behind all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 300 a year, she said, was average for a cop. That's, that's the cops who were not really making the big bucks.
That's true.
Yeah, when I got on the job, we had cops in my department doing 300 a month. It was crazy, but that's, going back a lot of years. Yeah, I mean, look, those sort of patronage jobs, those special assignments, the lieutenants and captains who get to trade in their uniform to put on a suit and go, work at a desk somewhere. That all comes with built-in overtime. Obviously, it comes with perks, comes with privileges, and the numbers are always big. So if you want to average it out, across the department, well, you can present the numbers in a very misleading way if you do that, because there are so many cops at the bottom who aren't making anything. So you even it out by averaging it.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because there's a second video as well where she talks about
there's more. Yeah, there's more. There's a couple more things on there, but I think that, listen, again, they always need to keep the head count the same. I don't know, they're not hiring enough or whatever, but again, I go back to, you need to hire more civilians to get rid of these administrative positions in the New York City Police Department. There's many of them. One police plaza, there was a whole unit. There was 80 cops in a unit to follow around a certain former disgraced deputy mayor who was at the time a deputy commissioner. I don't even know what that was about. There was 80 cops in a unit just to do some social media nonsense and all that. Yeah. So that's 80 administrative positions that are going to cops and not to civilians that could easily do that stuff. But that's why there's a shortage in the street. But they don't address that at all, ever.
And also, you get a lot of these guys, Anthony. I'm sure you can imagine this happens. I'm sure it happens in Yonkers too, who they're probably like a year or two away from retiring, and they're in it with the union heads, and people are behind them, and all of a sudden they'll get $150,000 in overtime 2 or 3 years in a row, and then they'll just walk out the door. So pretty much they're getting a pension that's equivalent to an executive.
You see what Mon Samurai just said there, Jack? He says, you want to see corruption? Just look at anyone retiring in their last year or 3 best in regards to overtime, which probably a lot of people knew, the swagger man with no plan was out the door. So they just try to do as much as they can. When he was leaving, they left with him. And that's why I try to tell people, they didn't leave in droves because Mamdani's the mayor. They're leaving because they don't like what's going on around them. Or, they're giving them undesired assignments, or a lot of times, or most of the majority of times, if you're a senior officer and you have enough time, you can walk away. It's monetary. They can leave with their best 3 years, and they made all those leave. What are you going to stick around for? You know?
Yeah,
And it's very carefully planned too. Like in terms of them leaving after they're able to get a lot of overtime. Like, oh, maybe I'll stay on another year if I can get $50,000 more in overtime.
Eric Sanders just gave you a good point here too. He says Tisha's never confronted with the shady statistical data. Padding overtime is actually against the law. That's never enforced. And you know what? There's a lot, and a lot of those people, by the way, not all of them. There's some that actually work, but I'm saying that there's many that were attached to certain other individuals that were doing exactly what Eric's talking about. They were padding their overtime. They're never going to get looked at, and they obviously got approval from a supervisor, so it goes back to the same routine that she doesn't address. Oh, and by the way, when you're mentioning overtime, I hope this video shows it. To her left, I believe in the right of the screen, is First Deputy Commissioner Tanya Kinsella.
Yep.
Is in charge of the overtime in the police department. She oversaw the entire scandal that happened when Jeffrey Madry was around, and it continues. It continues to this day. She has never been held accountable. She is the first, and she was at one of these hearings. Anthony, Jack, she got destroyed. She is sounding like a deer in headlights, yet she's still there. She was there for that again yesterday. All that overtime, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Whose fault is that? It's her fault, right? I mean, Joel Ramirez, shout out to he's in the chat. Remember, Sal, the PC had cut overtime by 26% in the last 2 years. Really? Who got cut? The working guy, the guy that just makes an arrest and is staying around. Oh, you can't be, or I'm gonna go drive the chief of internal affairs, or I'm gonna go drive his executive, and what's going on there? What are you guys doing? That kind of stuff. Oh, handsy, LePetch. Oh, let's go hang out. Let's go to the DL. Let's go do that. Is that the overtime you're handing out? There's a lot of that going on that, I don't know. There's a lot of allegations with that kind of stuff. But
yeah, right. I mean, look, if I'm a cop and I'm nearing retirement and you're going to let me work as much as I want, I'm going to take advantage of it, you know? So, but the problem is, you know, I don't mind guys working a lot before they're going to retire. You know, we live a very unique kind of a life. Our job is not like any others. We don't really obtain skills over the course of our career that translate into the private sector.
Yeah.
Usually maybe into like private investigator. There's only so many of those positions out there and stuff like that. But so if you're going to make some money before you leave, most civilians that I know don't even really mind it. The problem is where you're either not working it and just putting in for it and collecting it. There's a lot of that going on at the higher ranks of the Yonkers Police Department. Okay. And the second problem is when it's transactional. Like, what are you doing for me? What are you doing? I'm the mayor. What are you doing for me in exchange for me throwing you the keys to the safe on the way out the door? That's how Mike Spano was controlling the unions, the police unions in Yonkers.
Yep, that's true.
I got a whole chapter of that in the book I'm writing. You know, it's basically the outgoing president vacates the position and gets assigned a cushy gig with, in some cases, $100,000 worth of overtime built in. Right, like the lieutenant currently running the traffic unit.
Right here. Modern Samurai says everyone in the building is making their number. They just cut the people doing the actual work.
Right.
Junebug says there's no fear. There is no fear distribution of overtime of Transit District 34. Joel Ramirez says, Anthony, the question is, if I cut your overtime in the last few years before you hit your 20th year,
interesting.
Would you leave?
Well, that's a situation that a lot of guys find themselves in, especially when they agitate the wrong person. I don't know. I would have to crunch the numbers and see if it was feasible for me to retire, I guess, you know. Maybe
so
not.
I like
Maybe I'd stick around.
Yeah, Eric Sanders brings up a good point here. Read the New York City Comptroller's reports for the past 30 years. There's a persistent OT problem within the NYPD. Eric, I'll get to the Comptroller's report in a little while. But first, I mean, all you need to do is go on seethroughny.net and look at the NYPD's payroll, and you'll come to find out that 4 of the top 5 highest paid employees within the department were lieutenant special assignments, right? So listen, I mean, people have supervisory roles where they need to work overtime. They're overseeing a detective squad or whatever. I get it. But the problem still remains that they're getting over $100,000, in some cases over $150,000 worth of overtime every single year consistently. That's the problem.
Junebug said the police commission needs to ensure overtime is distributed fairly. Actually, that's the job of the first deputy commissioner. But she's at this little hearing too. So, Jack, there's more you have on this little
There's
hearing.
there's more to the hearing. You didn't really hear very much from Tanya Kinsella. She was kind of hiding next to Madry. She was actually out of the frame entirely. And I thought Oswald Feliz, the chief interrogator, if you want to call him that, did a pretty good job for the most part, but he didn't really interrogate Tish on the most important things, like who's getting the overtime, why are you giving it to them. He didn't do a good enough job, in my opinion, reviewing the budget and everything involved in distributing overtime before asking these questions. He's an expert on CCRB complaints and police reform within the Bronx, understandably so, but this is one area, preparation-wise, where he came up short. Anyway, this is when he asked her about the salaries of overtime, and this is where it gets even crazier. Take a listen to this.
What's the average salary considering the 300 hours that they generally do in overtime? Would you say we add an additional like 30,000 to that starting
For
salary?
calendar year 2025, on average, officers earned approximately $26,000 overtime per year. So with an average salary of $103,000, that would total $129,000.
See, that's just this is totally brushing it under the rug again, because she's talking about averages. That's still not diagnosing the problem at hand here. When you talk about averages, you're accounting for all of the people who have between 1 and 3 years on the job. That's the majority of the job, but 50% of the job is sitting in the bottom 50% of the payroll, right? So that's the one thing that's not being discussed by the woke city council member Feliz, who's involved, or Commissioner Tish. They're framing this differently. That's really the problem. And as such, most people in the audience and the members of the city council who are in the room, they still don't know why this is happening, and they're not addressing the problem.
Michael M. said this best: lies, damn lies, and there are statistics. The numbers are skewed. Mountain Samurai. I know a friend who's a lieutenant commander who worked over 3,000 hours overtime in his last year under Adams. And the most important one from Joel Ramirez, which I said earlier about the little Julie Menon confrontation. Do you guys know these questions are previously asked before they're in front of the camera?
Yeah, I had an idea that I don't know if they're asked as they're presented on camera. I do think that Feliz is like, okay, have a report ready about how many people worked overtime last year. How many people got X number of hours, 50 hours or more? How many of people made 50,000 or more in overtime? They do have those types of back and forths, but I don't think this question and answer session as we see it at the city council hearing happens beforehand.
Well, what people have to understand is that when you talk about evening out the overtime, it's never going to happen, because by distributing the overtime unevenly, lopsidedly unevenly, that's how they create loyalists. You know, that's how they make their own lives easier.
You're right.
And so they don't want it. They don't want it. Like, civilians don't understand that. They're on the outside looking into these situations and saying, how come they can't fix this? Well, they can. They don't want to, because it works to their advantage, you know?
You create a loyalist. It's like a patronage system, you know? Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Eric Sands in his chat said, I mentioned that earlier. They coordinate the testimony. That's a fact. Ask the soccer mom and Julie Menon. And Eric did write something about it. And I got word about the same thing. And it was all coordinated, you know. But you have anything else with this, Jack? Because there's more. There's something else I wanted to get to. The overtime thing is crazy. And the person that's in charge of it actually didn't get, I mean, she oversaw a scandal and is still there. And there's another more of a scandal, and she's still there as a first deputy commissioner. I don't know what's going on. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, as I previously touched on, and as Eric Sanders touched on here, the spoil system. Menon and Tish are two lifelong bureaucrats who are from very wealthy families and married and involved with very powerful people. So yeah, I mean, they've been in this game for over 20 years, working in various positions at this point. In regards to Tanya Kinsella, though, I mean, she played a very secondary role in the hearing. She didn't really answer many questions. One case, he even deferred to Chief LaPetri to answer a question.
Oh God, she is in charge of this overtime, the distribution, everything about it. Tanya Kinsella should be asked all the time about overtime. What's going on? How is it? And everything that occurred previously. She was still the first deputy commissioner. She somehow has survived everything. She is still there in charge of the same thing. Why is she not asked what everyone needs to know? She knows about the distribution of it, the allocation, all that stuff she knows. Yet no one's asking her anything.
I believe her phrasing was, "We're monitoring it more closely," but clearly,
Yeah, okay, yeah. Just instead of 400,000 to the disgraced former chief of department's lieutenant friend, we're just gonna make it 330, and we're not gonna ask any questions. That's what I'm seeing. I got a shout out here, Modern Samurai. Shout out to you, $20 to the Sal Greco Show. Says, great show as always. The NYPD is worth saving, just not under these morons. That's exactly my point. These people are just, I don't know what they feel, the way they answer the questions and what they're asking them. It just made my blood boil. Oh, the person that's literally in charge of the over is right next. It didn't get any questions. So clearly this is a rigged system. And
as long as she does what she's told, when she's told, and doesn't ask any questions, she's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter how incompetent she is,
It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame.
Special Hagen says for them to have the questions beforehand, they sure did struggle. They had to make it look good. It's WWE. They do the same thing in front of the camera at WWE. You would think those wrestlers hate each other when they're best friends in the back.
Well, there was too much friendly back and forth between Tish and Felice for my liking. They were joking with each other, and Felice was like, "Oh yeah, you could finish," like while chuckling with his stupid little grin. So, I mean, yeah, these are all bureaucrats talking to one another for the public's pleasure, but it's not really serious. None of it is. And we're still not addressing the problem with overtime, which is too many people in administrative posts are getting egregious amounts of overtime, and that's crushing the budget. And that was not asked about at all either.
Modern Samurai said Tish is a useful idiot because no one can hurt her. Too much money, too much power, too much influence. She's a soccer mom. That's what I'm telling you.
No one can hurt her, but she can hurt herself if she stays in the police department for a long time and she has her hands tied behind her back by Mamdani. Because in the same way that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are kind of hurting their own political reputations by going along with everything the president says, I think Tish has hurt her reputation going along with everything that Mamdani says and does, even if they have had public disagreements in the past. This whole thing. You have anything else for me? Because there's one other thing I'm going to mention out of this. There's a lot. No, I don't have any other clips from it. If I took all the clips I wanted to play, we would be here all afternoon.
Yeah, the infamous Jeffrey Madry was mentioned, and all that entire incident. Of course, we have Eric Sanders in the chat. He's representing Quatisha Epps, who's in the center of everything that happened. Right? She was asked about Jeffrey Madry. And I believe her answer was that, was anyone disciplined? Was anyone, nothing happened. Nothing's happened in that case because she said, well, the FBI is now involved and, they got to do their course. They have to take their course of action. They've always been involved, but you don't know to what degree. We don't know exactly what's going on with that, but was anyone disciplined?
So I remember that. I remember that part. Yeah, I remember that part of the hearing very well. And Tish's exact words, I just mentioned this saying, but she used it in referring to how the department was dealing with Jeffrey Madry's legal proceedings. Our hands are tied with what we can do when the FBI is involved in investigation, meaning that we can't do anything. Of course, Tanya Consilla's face was down at the table, looking at the table the entire time. She didn't even look up once. But they were trying to make the point, like, we're not accountable because we can't do anything when the FBI is involved. And they actually have superior powers to us. So they take us out of every investigation involving our members.
So is that why I believe Chief Fedorov, who was the executive to Jeffrey Madry, that's why he retired? He put his paper in. No.
I remember that portion of the hearing very well.
What's going on with Madry lately?
Well, Madry, he's under a federal investigation that it never ends. It's just like you never hear about anything. I know he's been down to some hearings downtown with a case, Tim Pearson as well. But, other people, you can't just put everything. Madry has a huge, the majority of the blame is going to fall on his
of course.
His lap. But his lackeys underneath him also were. You just can't knock off one. If you just cut the head, another head grows. You got to eliminate the entire horse. The entire horse has many pieces. Fedorov was an executive. He just retired. So I guess he didn't do anything wrong. He was just signing off on things and saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do that overtime. His signature's on a lot of stuff, right? Why is he allowed to retire? Just like, okay, so these are the questions they didn't ask her, because no one has been disciplined out of any of that stuff. Only one guy was a chief. Oh, by the way, and that guy, he's basically now talking to the feds because they were gonna come after him hard. He was the not the commanding officer, he was the executive officer of the chief of department's office. So they're picking and choosing losers, winners and losers. That's what they love doing. Value judgments. I mean, this whole thing, it just making my blood boil. How she's saying they did not take care of anything, and Jack Anthony did not take. They are not doing anything about it. Madry, although he's under federal investigation, all these people that were involved, all these other executives that allowed this nonsense, nothing. Yeah, there's nothing going on.
There's more going on with him than just the female lieutenant making accusations against him. There's more than that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, he also had a whole disciplinary work record, which was kind of brushed under the rug.
Yeah, Eric Sanders right here says it best. The USAO SDNY does not control the civil side. It doesn't preclude the department's ability to take employment actions,
sure,
i.e., modifications, suspensions, transfers. And by the way, you're right. Special Agent says, how can Madry be under investigation, not Kinsella, if she signed off on everything?
And same with John Shell, who was named as Jeffrey Madry's successor, right? Jeffrey Madry's replacement was someone who was also culpable in the scandal that he was involved in, and they just decided not to charge him or not to investigate him either. So it's a good point, Sal, right? You didn't really get rid of the horse. You just had it grow back in a different form. And Michael LePetri, too, is another one of them, right? It's not like they've cleaned up the culture at one police plaza. He had someone within his own office drive drunk and kill someone recently, right? So, like, you're not cleaning up the toxic police culture that existed for a while. And all the cops in the comments and on X are going to be killing me. Oh, you never worked on the job. You never worked on the job. You're right about that, but I have very good institutional knowledge about governmental bureaucracies, and I would argue that's actually more important when it comes to understanding something like this, because this has very little to do with police work and more to do with the favoritism that takes place within the department.
There's a lot of it, and again, and just so we're going to get into your stuff, Anthony. Just one last comment on this. Eric Sanders said, I agree the department is worth saving. This is why the Sal Greco Show's public commentary is important for the uninformed listener. And that's essentially, thank you, Eric. That's essentially what I'm trying to do here, because we're trying to get blow the whistle, ring the alarm bells. What you saw at that hearing, that could be its own show. Everything, it's so much stuff. I'm just trying to get to the quicker, like the quick points about it. But what happened, what you saw, no one's being held accountable. They just keep spinning the wheels. There's so many people that should be A, on their investigation, B, transferred, C, like all kind of administrative, nothing. And you have a police department with a chaos underneath this woman. And is she to blame for all that stuff? No, but she's in charge and she's not even being informed correctly. The whole thing is a mess. And all we're trying to do here is you got to fix this from within. I know they hate watching this stuff on my show. They hate when I come out with stuff, but this is the stone cold truth is what I'm trying to lay out.
Let me ask you, what's the buzz about Madry from the boots on the ground? I mean, I thought the whole timing of that article that came, it was in the Post, I believe, where the female lieutenant is making the accusations. If I remember correctly, there was an article just a few days earlier about all the crazy amounts of money certain people are making.
Yeah.
Is it not possible that she got nervous and preemptively came out with this story rather than be on the hook for making tons of money?
So let me speak to that first, and then I'll let Sal answer. That story was leaked to the media before Coathesha Epps made her accusations against Madry public. So before any of this happened, there had been reports that Epps had worked egregious amounts of overtime, which got back to Madry, and Madry started an investigation into her. Madry and his cronies presumably leaked out the facts that she had worked so many overtime hours, and she had been contacted by the Post, at which point she said, I was being required to work that many overtime hours, and you can even check the cameras in my office as well. So yeah, a lot of that information was kind of like third part. It was like playing the game of telephone, right? Like Madry Madry whispers in someone else's ear, this is what's going on. They whisper in someone else's ear. And by the time the story gets to the final person, it's totally convoluted and twisted. And then 2 days later, of course, Epps makes her allegations public. And there were a lot of other people that Madry allegedly was sexually abusing too, including Detective Ingrid Sanders, who was his personal driver.
Okay.
So there's a lot. I mean,
Right.
no, Jason says Epps isn't an angel after either. She knows what she was doing. This is yet to be. There's going to be more that comes out on all of this. I mean, Eric right here says the Epps verified complaint will be dropped soon. It's going to be a headquarters shaker. I think that's what everybody's waiting for.
Yeah.
So, and there's going to be a lot of evidence in that.
Not that I have any idea what's going on, but a lot of people don't realize that, unfortunately, the practice of female officers doing certain things for the brass in return for a lot of overtime or maybe a special assignment or something like that is all too common of a practice, in police culture. Or at least it was in the Yonkers Police Department for a long time. I don't know about the NYPD. I'm sure
it's next door. You're next door. That's what it is. Yonkers NYPD is like the same. You're like next door.
The tri-state area departments are all cousins from the same distant family.
Right. So for people who don't know, viewers of yours who might not know where Yonkers is, it's right on the border. It borders the Bronx to the north. Right. So it's the 5-0 is right on the border.
Yeah,
South
you're
Broadway and Carroll Avenue. The incident that I sent Jack some video of today is that it took place. That store is a stone's throw from the Bronx border. I mean, you can go outside to the sidewalk and smack a golf ball into the Bronx. It's right there. So
so let's get to that, Ann. What's kind of the latest with your case? And you mentioned the surveillance footage. Is there anything you wanted to show the audience from that before you got into the specifics of it?
Well, I mean, why don't you guys fire away, because I need to practice. Okay, you want to look at the video? This is, I filed a lawsuit, and this is what started it all off. This took place in a little bodega type of a store on South Broadway in Yonkers, which is right there at the Bronx border. All right. I never really did, get to figure out what was going on here. But as you can see, the guy has a gun. He pulled it out, and now, boom, he pistol whips the guy, does it a few times. The gun goes flying. I don't know if you saw that in the top left corner. The gun stayed behind. Eventually, what's going to happen here is they're going to get up to their feet, and these guys are going to chase the victim, who was in the red coat. They're going to chase him out of the store. And then the clerk called the cops. I was like a couple of football fields away down at a red light when the call came over. It was a very, very busy tour. There I am, no hair back then. This is going back to December of 2019. And I show up as close as I was. There were already cops there when I got there. And I go in, and we're watching the surveillance footage of what happened on the screen. There's a gun laying on the floor over in the corner. Okay, it's pretty clear that they assaulted this guy with the weapon. They might have even tried to kill him. The way it played out to me, it kind of looked like the guy tried to pull the trigger, although that's tough to tell on a video. But the gun didn't go off. They beat him with it. They ran out. So we're looking at it, and I call for detectives, right? Now here they come. Here come the detectives. Not exactly the A squad. Now, in the long coat, they're walking in. I just call her Red because she's got red hair. The one behind her in the black jacket. Red is the one that causes a lot of the trouble here, and we'll get to that in a second. The one behind her in the black jacket, that's my daughter's mother. Okay. Now you can see they walk in. I don't say a word to her. This clown who walks in last, this guy was too special for the special bus, right? He was a nice guy, but he was one of those guys that was basically only a detective because he had a lot of connections with some of the right people.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those in the Yonkers Police Department. So they go around, they take a look at the gun. They don't really look at any video or anything like that. This happened at around dinner time, at around 5:30, which when I later had a conversation with the chief, he told me that's the worst time to call them because they were probably sitting down eating somewhere. Yeah. And I probably made them get up out of their chairs or whatever restaurant they were at and come out to this crime scene. Right? Now, I didn't work in this precinct. I was on overtime. I got a call from this precinct to come work overtime. So I was unfamiliar with the perps on the screen. When I worked in that precinct, I would have been familiar with them, but I wasn't. So I called detectives out to help assist in the investigation. Now, in a second here, you're going to see she pulls out her cell phone. She's like, I don't want anything to do with this. And she calls, right now, she calls her detective sergeant, Louis Venturino, who is a notorious drunkard, always drinking on duty, and very temperamental dude. Okay, I had some minor incidents with him as a lieutenant. Before this, he probably wouldn't even remember them because he was drunk. But she gets on the phone and she goes outside and she's going to call him and basically say, hey, listen, we don't really feel like doing our job here. Can we leave? We know the lieutenant called us out here. Can you just tell us that we can leave? Now, I didn't know that that's what she was doing at the time. So she comes back in and she tells the other two. My daughter's mother, who was basically just along for the ride with them. She wasn't really like what they call the air car. I don't know what they call it in the NYPD, but it's the air car is the car that is responsible for taking new assignments during that tour while the other detectives are following up on prior cases. But my daughter's mother was not the air car. It was the other two, Red and then this other clown. So as he was walking out there, you didn't see it on the camera, but what he said to me was, we're going to go outside and check the buildings outside for cameras, for surveillance cameras, right? And I said, okay, good, cool. Like they're doing their job, right? Now, on the way in, now watch this. She's walking out. She's going to say hello to the sergeant who's just showing up now. Gives him a big hug, okay? They know each other. And then she walks off and he comes in. Now, let me see where the video picks up here. I think it's getting pretty close to the end. Yeah, okay, right. So that's it. Now, what happened was we were standing around for probably 15 or 20 minutes waiting for the crime scene unit to come out and collect the gun. Okay. The detective division has a whole procedure that they do whenever a gun is collected during a crime. They got to notify the ATF. If the serial number is scratched off, they have other ways that they try to identify the gun and all that. So there's a procedure to it. They just didn't want to be involved. They didn't care. It was dinner time, right? I didn't know that what they did was when he basically tells me we're going to go outside and check for surveillance cameras, they walk outside, they get in the car and they leave. Okay? Right. Now, I didn't realize that they did that. So after the crime scene unit comes and collects the gun and everything, they leave. And now we're just standing around, meet a bunch of patrol cops and the sergeant. We're standing around in the store like idiots. Right. And I'm thinking, and I said to the sergeant, where did they go? Like, where did they go to check for these surveillance cameras? There can only be so many in the area.
Yeah.
And he goes, they left. She told me they were leaving. Right. And my blood pressure goes through the roof. Why? You might say, well, that's a little excessive, because it's constant with these people. Right. And I spoke to other patrol bosses. I had many, many issues like this before. Detectives like those that walked in. Not my daughter's mother. She's actually pretty good. Okay. The other two were there for reasons other than being stellar performers in patrol. All right. Long stories for both of them. I don't really care to go into it, but they should. Yeah. But they were there. Okay. And they're constantly causing problems for supervisors, headaches. And it wasn't so much the fact that they didn't want to do their job. I saw that a lot of times. What it was the way they went about it. Right. Okay. She sneaks off and makes a phone call. She comes back in. She tells the other guy. He basically deploys a diversion, every tactic, like to distract me. Oh, stay in here. We're going to go outside and do our job. And then they sneak off. And he did this in front of about 8 patrol guys, New Jacks. Okay. I thought it was disrespectful and I blew my top. So I get on the phone with her, and you can see this on other portions of the video. I got on the phone with her and I said, where did you guys go? My daughter's mother. She goes, listen, I'm not the air car. All right. The redhead, she says, she tells me her name. She called Venturino, who was the boss. Okay. He said, we can leave. I said, really? Who was he to tell you can? Explain that to me. Did he really do that? Now, this is a guy we all knew was always off drinking somewhere, right? Usually he's hanging out at a jewelry store up out of jurisdiction at his friend's jewelry store.
Where about, if I may ask?
Ardsley. Ardsley is like a couple of towns north.
Okay.
Of here. And, he goes up there, he gets drunk in his take-home car, because he's a detective sergeant, he gets a take-home car, parks it right outside the jewelry store. He goes in the back, this office where they call it the lounge, right? I had been back there because the owner is a former cop.
Oh, okay.
So You go back there and they got a water cooler full of Tito's vodka. You just dispense it right into the cup. So they get hammered. He drives back to work at the end of the night to sign paperwork. He drives drunk. No one ever says boo to him. I knew he had protection. I just didn't know where it came from. I would find that out later, unfortunately, you know. So I tell her, you know, she says to me, talk to him. You know, if you don't like what happened here, talk to him. I said, I'm going to talk to somebody, but it's not going to be him. That turned out to be a fatal mistake. Okay. Because what I'm basically saying is I'm going to go over his head and talk to his boss. I'm a lieutenant. If I don't want to talk to the sergeant, I don't have to. I'm going to talk to his lieutenant. Probably would not have gone anywhere. Okay. But she takes it upon herself. Yes, it is a clown show. She takes it upon herself to tell him that I said that. And that's when all hell breaks loose. He's giving me a 10-1 over the radio. He's calling the dispatcher to tell me to call him immediately, you know, like forthwith right now. And I got the other lieutenant who's working telling me there's no captain on duty. Who's telling you to call right now? Who's giving you that order? I said, dude, it's this guy. You know who it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's obviously steamed up to his neck. He's got friends in the right places. And he's basically telling me, you're going to call me now or else. So I tell her, you know, tell this a-hole to stop putting transmissions over the radio, to stop calling my cell phone. I'm not talking to him, and that's it. Okay, he doesn't like that. And then I get a voicemail.
Which I'll play right here. Just takes a couple seconds to start.
We played this last time too, by the way.
At 10:11 p.m. Duration 35 seconds. Hey, listen, I know you, Lieutenant, but you have a problem with the detectives, you call Detective Sergeant. If you have a problem with that, you call Detective Lieutenant. I don't know who the fuck you think you are. Because you want to play this game, you're going to lose it. I'll tell you right now. I don't know who the fuck you think you are. Save this message and play to whoever you want. Okay? There's a chain of command. If you have an issue with a sergeant, you call my lieutenant. If you have an issue with a detective, you call the sergeant. Don't answer my phone call. I don't give a fuck about you. Wake up.
So he made it pretty personal there. He said he doesn't give a fuck about you, and then he's telling you what to do. So, yeah. Like he didn't even mention one thing about the circumstance involved, about his subordinates being on a crime scene with you, about how you didn't go through the chain of command properly. So
very
personal, not professionally related.
So there's two aspects to that voicemail. The first is where he's trying to school me on chain of command. What he's basically saying is you're obligated to talk to me before you talk to my lieutenant. Anybody who knows anything about chain of command knows that's not true. If you're a sergeant, I don't have to talk to you. If I don't like what you did, I can go talk to your lieutenant about it. I don't have to talk to you about it. I can, but I was angry. And you're not supposed to handle things when you're angry. You're supposed to calm down first and then go handle it, okay? But he's a big shot, and he's got an ego the size of New York State. And he doesn't like that. He takes that as disrespect. Okay, whatever. I didn't listen to the voicemail, even though I got it. I received it on my phone. I knew what it said. I didn't need to listen to it. I knew the guy. I knew the guy for years. Okay, he's an asshole. So I didn't listen to it. I listened to it the next day. And then I brought it to my captain and the executive lieutenant of the precinct that I worked in. And they were like, oh, you know, they didn't know what to do about it. They were like, oh, leave us out of that, basically. So I sent an email to a couple of chiefs, and I courtesy copied the captain of the detective division. And that's when all hell broke loose, okay? I was working overtime that day because one of the lieutenants, actually two of them who worked in that precinct where I was working overtime, they were on vacation in Nashville. When they got back, one of them came to see me and said, what happened with you? So I told him the story. That's when he tells me, oh, well, you know, Venturino is like this with Mueller. And I said, oh my God. Oh my God.
And who's Mueller, just for our audience?
Oh my God.
For them?
John Mueller was the police commissioner at the time. The mayor, more accurately, the mayor's brother, Nick Spano, sold the police commissioner's office to Mueller and his friends, one of whom was this guy, Louis Venturino. Okay. Nobody in their right mind would ever make this guy a police commissioner, but in Yonkers, everything is for sale with City Hall. So they make this guy the police commissioner, and he was, when I tell you, a notorious screwball. I mean, just like this was the guy who whose radar you did not want to be on. Oh my God! I pulled up a picture of.
Yeah, well, I want our audience to
Look
get
at him.
familiar with
Yeah.
powerful figure within Yonkers. I didn't mean to unearth any trauma that was hiding beneath the surface of it.
No. Please go ahead. I post pictures of him on my Facebook page all the time. These were the guys who planted crack on people when they became friends in the housing unit in the 90s.
Mm.
After I started podcasting locally with somebody else, I had people contacting me with stories. One guy who said they warned him not to make an IA complaint. Then when he did, they found him on the street corner and planted crack on him and accused him of swallowing crack.
Jeez.
Later went to the hospital and, look at my stomach. There's nothing there, dude, But Mueller himself was an administrative predator. And when this happened, this guy who comes back from vacation and tells me something that I should have known, but didn't know, that these guys were like this because they're such an odd couple, right? Louis Venturino was a guy who walked around he reminded me of those two guys from the NYPD remember they were doing hits for the mob. They were like pulling people over.
Eppolito and
yes. And something else started with a C. The other guy's name started with a C. I can't remember. But he was like that guy. The guy, I can't remember his name, started with a C. They said he used to wear like $2,000 suits to work. And the expensive colognes, and he walked around like he was in the mafia. That's the kind of guy that Louis Venturino was. Mueller, on the other hand, was just a complete and total screwball, right? Like a nerd. He was very sadistic, always fabricating evidence against people, decades worth of it. But you would never have put these two together if you didn't have firsthand knowledge that they were actually good friends. You would never think of it. So I get this information, and it's just like, oh my God, because Mueller was dangerous, and everybody knew it. So now I know what he means when he leaves me a voicemail and says, "You want to play this game? You're going to lose it, right?" Yes, Cara Kappa, right?
Yeah.
And just to give a little bit of additional background on Mueller, because people don't really know much about his career, he retired from the Yonkers Police Department back in 2022 for 3 months. Then he became the chief of police for the MTA. Then he left that job or was forced out the door. No one really knows. It was a kind of abrupt exit.
Oh, I know.
Days he's working as a regional director for Motorola. So he's actually in a completely different line of work now than he was when he was in law enforcement.
He was, they deny it, but by all indications, he was removed. He was asked for his resignation about a couple of days after my initial pension hearing. At which I submitted a whole boatload of evidence of what he did in the weeks and months that followed that voicemail. That's what we went over the first time I was on.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they sent my daughter's mother to the family court. They basically leveraged her into victimhood because I was cursing at her in text messages and things like that. Meanwhile, we have cell phones that are, they have years worth of us just arguing with each other. But all of a sudden, she's a victim. Okay. Whatever. We went over that the first time. A series of emails goes back and forth where I'm telling the chief, and then you can see Mueller all of a sudden is courtesy copied, and he's basically telling Internal Affairs to stay away from Louis Venturino. But then all of a sudden I'm getting called down to Internal Affairs, and it's this whole big thing. Now, I know Mueller's completely out of his mind. So I tell the union boss in an email, which is who he's expecting me to go down to Internal Affairs with, stay home. You're a sellout? Okay, I'm going to bring my own attorney. Now, when I do that, that's when they get the doctor involved, and that's what the lawsuit is about. All right. Now, we went over a 16-day window last time. That's where Mueller really sealed his fate by finagling doctor's appointments, trying to time the doctor's appointment so that it came after her family offense petition. And that's where he ended his own career. And that's what I posted a 12 or 13-minute video of my pension hearing that they didn't know I was recording, because you can record your computer screen. So I recorded the pension hearing, and I played the relevant portions of it on my own Facebook page, followed by an article from the Daily News where Mueller's on the outs a couple of weeks later. But what they do is, so what the lawsuit is about is, if you want to take a look at it.
So yeah, this is the motion notice.
That's
of
their response. Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
not the
it goes
original
over some
complaint.
of the
That's
details here.
Corporation Counsel's motion to dismiss. Yeah, what they're going to do is they're going to motion to dismiss it based on the statute of limitations. Yeah.
Do you see who you're in front of? Judge Dale Ho. Do you know remember who he is? He had the infamous Eric Adams corruption case.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so you know who you're in front of. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He tried to do the right thing, but his hands were tied.
Well, from what I understand, he's formerly an ACLU guy, which gives me some hope, actually, because the ACLU is pretty protective of people's rights, even if they don't like the person, you know.
He gave Mohammed Bahi a get out of jail free card because he realized that Eric Adams was the one carrying out the straw donor scheme. And he said, even at the ruling, it's weird that the individual behind this case specifically is in another country right now, and you're here kind of taking the blame for all of his crimes. So I'm going to let you off. He said that in so many words, but that was kind of the gist of his message.
Right. I remember reading about that. Yeah. You know, so we'll see.
I mean,
what happens.
he has a strong he's a guy who has a strong moral compass when it comes to workplace rights. I guess.
Well, that's good. That's good because what's the scandal brewing behind this situation is so enormous. Now their play is going to be to motion. Well, they already did it. They motioned to dismiss primarily on the grounds that the statute of limitations has expired by 14 months. That's now you can say to me, well, what have you been doing all this time? Well, this is where the doctor comes in, right? So I'm gonna. By the way, we've all heard of Adrian Schoolcraft, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I shouldn't have to work too hard to convince you that police brass are constantly defrauding psychological services against their own employees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, because there's a stigma involved in getting psychological.
And the whole thing here, you got Eric Sanders has a case of them, you know, what the surge. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Unlicensed psychologists are doing. We had a whole expose with that. Kelly Price, Grace, she was on. So I'm no stranger to this stuff.
Yeah, of course they do it all the time, and they do it, and they think that. Hold on a second, somebody's texting me. Somebody important is texting me.
Yeah, so I know that there was a doctor involved in your case who kind of was a little negligent. You want to go into detail about him and how he's involved and what his involvement is with the most recent developments?
Yeah, it's a fraud case. So what they do is, so all this. Oh, that's the guy who wrote the report. Yeah, and actually, you know what? I have it here. I'll read you some of the more entertaining stuff from it. Let me just change for the purpose of making the explanation a little simpler. Let me just change the dates around a little bit. So say you have all this evidence. You're Joe Cop, right? And you have all this evidence that you've collected of what management is doing. And the guy doing it, like Mueller, has a long history of doing it, has been sued for doing similar types of things and whatnot. And you have all this evidence that he did it, let's say, like just arbitrarily between December 1st and December 31st of 2025. Okay? Now, if you make the mistake of letting the administration know that you have all this evidence of what he did, which is something you can never do, you keep your mouth shut until the right time to strike. But if you make the mistake hoping that they'll back off, like I did, of showing them that you can prove what they're doing, right? Then on January 1st of 2026, again, we're using fake dates here just so I can make the point, right? All of the misconduct ended on December 31st, 2025. So you have until December 31st of 2028, 3 years later, to file a lawsuit, right? You know, these things, you gather evidence of corruption. It has a shelf life. It's like it's like a can of soup in your pantry closet. It's not good forever. It's horrifying, but you got to do something about it within a certain amount of time. Now, they can't do anything about the facts that you've collected. They can't do anything. You got it all on a flash drive. So how are they going to escape accountability for what they've done? What they have to do is they have to find another way to prevent you from getting into court. That's where the doctor comes in. What they need him for is they need him to write a report that bars you from going back to work in any capacity, right? How many cops do you know who get jammed up with a little something, or maybe they think he's having some emotional issues or something, and they park him at a desk? No shrink, no nothing. They just park them at a desk, modified duty, whatever. Okay. It's rather extreme for them to completely suspend you from work without pay when you haven't done anything wrong, right? Or very, let's just say not much. I insulted some people, but you haven't done much wrong. What they need him to do is to come in and hand them a report that says this guy is so crazy that he can't go back to work in any capacity. No desk, no nothing. Okay? Because what that does is it justifies them keeping you out of the workplace and taking you off of the payroll. And that's going to be how they beat you. When they take you off the payroll, no attorney is going to come near you. They don't care how good your facts are, how much evidence you have of what they've done. When an attorney hears that you're pinned against a psychological report and that you don't have an income anymore, you're lucky if you even get one on the phone. As a matter of fact, your friend Eric said any other attorney ever did. But at the end of the day, he even said, no thanks.
Yeah.
I don't blame him because I didn't really think he would take it. But I knew that I might end up coming on the show again. So I figured, let me reach out to him so that I can give him an idea of what's going on. I think he only took the call because I told him I was on the Sal Greco Show. Most attorneys don't even take the call. You fill out intake forms on the internet. They don't even respond, or they'll respond and say, sorry, we don't handle those kinds of cases. So what they're basically doing with these doctors is they're using these doctors to get themselves into a defunding law, Article 72, Section 5 of the Civil Service Law, that allows them to suspend you without pay indefinitely. Okay. Now, what they also have to do is they have to ignore the last part of the report, which, as I'll read it to you from my own right here, the guy. Other recommendations. So he recommends return to work, not recommended. Other recommendations: individual psychological therapy, anger management, more intensive psychiatric treatment, and evaluation for antipsychotic and mood stabilizing medication. So he's recommending that you go through all this counseling, maybe even be prescribed medicine or whatever. And they just ignore that part. They ignore it. Because what they're benefiting from is you being off of the payroll. To commence counseling would begin the path you getting back onto the payroll. So they ignore that. Remember, you have a 3-year statute of limitations to bring forth a lawsuit concerning all of the managerial misconduct that took place before they sent you to the doctor, right? So what they have to do is, let's go back to those dates that I was using. All of this misconduct that you can prove started in early December and ended on December 31st of 2025. If they can keep you off of the payroll, basically broke, worrying how you're going to pay your electric bill and your mortgage for the duration of the following 3 years,
then they
get away with the managerial misconduct that took place beforehand.
Yeah.
So this is right. This is not a situation of let's send them to a shrink and hope that the shrink fails them and writes this wildly out of line report so that we can suspend them without pay. This is, we're keeping these doctors in contract to call up and use them in these situations when we're in trouble, right? They're not pulling this scam because you're in trouble. They're pulling it because they're in trouble. And once they stick you into the world of forensic psychiatry, man, you ain't coming out. Believe me.
No. So essentially what they did is they ran out the clock and they tried it. So they did do. They ran out the clock. Right.
Now, if you want to pull up that response, that motion to dismiss again, we're going to pull up point number 2, and this is going to be the whole contest here. If the judge sees through this and understands that this is a fraud and decides to hear this case, this is over with. This is a non-contest. This is a no contest, a non-event. Okay? It's going to be a serious embarrassment for a lot of people. Now, I think that's the first page.
Yeah, let's go down to page 2. And this, by the way, is where police departments and other bureaucratic agencies just try and wear you down. It's like a snake raveling around you, right?
Right.
Has your own union helped you at all?
No, absolutely not.
Of course not. That's what I thought.
No.
Well, the union, just to be clear here, in a lot of these cases, a lot of people assume that the PBA lawyers are like the knight in shining armor that comes to the rescue. That's not the case because they work for the police department. So let's kind of adjust the expectations here. The PBA lawyers are going to do what's best for the PBA and the Yonkers Police Department, not what's best for the employee specifically.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they are supposed to give you some help, but they don't because they know it's going to embarrass the mayor. And like I was just saying, the mayor controls the union presidents with bribery. when my union president vacates the presidency, he wants to go to the union. Actually, the guy who did sell me out is the detective captain right now. He's the commanding officer of the detective division. He's probably making $120,000 a year in overtime. So do you think he's going to jeopardize that by taking the police commissioner and the mayor to court?
No, of course
on
not.
behalf of little old me? Of course not. I'm sorry, Jack. Go back to it because we want to go down. And at bullet point number 2. No, it's got to be up a little bit. What is that? That's the. Is that the right document?
Yeah, this is the motion to dismiss.
Okay, there was another document in there that it's all right if you can't find it, don't worry about it. But basically, it takes all of the there's 6 or 7 bullet points, all grounds on which they're trying to get the case dismissed. Number 2 is going to be the main event. It's going to be the statute of limitations. What I'm going to do now is I have to respond, and I get to submit evidence, of which I have a lot. So at the end of the day, no matter how Judge Ho rules, he's going to know what's going on. And for some reason, I find a lot of solace in that. That I have no control over how he rules, but a federal judge is going to know what they're doing with these doctors at the end of the day. Regardless of how he rules, he's going to know it for some reason.
And a federal judge is a lot more likely to be neutral because he's seen a lot of these cases. It's not like the police department who has intrinsic motivation to cover it up, and even some of the local municipalities who want to remain on good terms with one another. So it is good news that a federal judge, not a local one, is hearing your case.
Yes, it's excellent. I mean, it's excellent news. I finally, the way I ended up actually bringing the lawsuit was after years of trying to hook an attorney. I'm telling you, I mean, ask Sanders. You get him on the phone for 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to convince them of how much evidence you have, and that you're going to win the case. They just, when they hear psychological intermination, they just don't want anything to do with you. It's too risky for them. This guy took my kid from me, so I'm in this to my last breath.
Yeah.
But getting an attorney is very difficult once they pull this scam. Very, very difficult. It's proven to be impossible. Now, my friend Paulie, who is a guy who reached out to me when he was watching me podcast locally with another guy. He said, dude, they're pulling the same thing with me. He said, they're sending me up to this clinic, the IMA clinic. I said, dude, don't go. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. They're going to get the report back. It's going to be utter nonsense. The doctor's going to quote you as saying things you definitely did not say. They're going to make you sound like a lunatic. They're going to invoke the law that gets you off the payroll. They're going to leave you there. They're going to fire you a year later. Okay? And they're going to forget about you. Oh, the lawyer's telling me I got to go. I said, that's what the lawyer told me. Okay. And then he forgot about me after they cut me off the payroll. He filed also. And in his case is much fresher because he showed up and they did the same thing with him, just like I told him they would do. But in his case, I said, dude, listen, if you're going to go, you got to take my word on one thing. Record the conversation. They're not going to search you when you go in there. Buy a little recording device, put it in your pocket, record the conversation with the doctor. You're going to be very happy that you did. And he did. So that judge, I believe he filed in White Plains. I'm not certain of that, but I believe he filed in federal court in White Plains. I
think right here what Special Hagen's saying is the federal judges can also be political, but Ho is relatively new to the bench. So
yeah. Well, you can never get into politics entirely. Yeah.
No, you might have a good chance with this is in fact that you have someone, and they threw a political case at him. Well, it was a real case, and he handled that pretty well with Eric Adams, right, with the weight of the federal government on top of him. But so I guess your next move is how long you have until this you got to file for this motion and everything.
They'll be in next week. Yeah, I think you get a couple of weeks or 30 days. We're not going to need all that. It's all ready to go, and they know 85 or 90% of what I'm going to submit. That voicemail, all of the stuff we went over on the first time I came on with you, all of that evidence, showing how he finagled the doctor's appointments.
Well, no, I want everyone to hear this update and what's going on with you because it's important that we like to keep track of what's going on. And I didn't know you had Judge Ho in front of you, which is very interesting because it's we were fans of him during the Eric Adams case because he seemed to try to do the right thing and get stalled out by the federal government. The roles reversed. The roles were reversed. So he kind of knows this political nonsense. So I think you stand a fair chance, which is all you want. You don't want a bias, So I think you're in good hands with that. Jack, you got anything to say?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, well, obviously, first of all, we wish you the best of luck. We're confident that you're going to win your case. But in addition to that, I think you've set things up circumstantially where you have the best shot of winning. Too many times people are not educated about the court system, and they'll walk into a trial without the right attorney, without the right judge, and they'll just get their ass kicked. Here, you've really taken the time to build your case, and we commend you for speaking out so publicly about it, because a lot of people are scared about the backlash and consequences that they'll face from doing what you're doing. So it's very commendable in that regard, too.
Do you want to read a couple of things from the report?
I think we're going to move on and talk about it, especially because there's actually breaking news right now. We were talking about the officer-involved shooting. There's a group of African Americans outside Gracie Mansion
right now
protesting the lack of involvement from the mayor. They were upset that he didn't have a press conference about the African American officer who was involved in the shooting, and they're now playing the race card as well because he had previously spoken when a Muslim involved officer was involved in the shooting. So, there's now racial tensions building over the most recent.
Was the officer not black or Hispanic, or what was the officer?
So I think they're referring to the case with Diderot Islam, who was Muslim. He was obviously killed in an off-duty. He was working like a paid detail, and he was killed. And Mamdani spoke out about it, and obviously visited the victim's family member's house. But in this case, these protesters, specifically led by Reverend McCall, are complaining because the officer left someone brain dead over a personal dispute, and we haven't heard any communication from the mayor's office. Now, the mayor's office is arguing they're not required to comment on an off-duty incident. Of course, if Eric Adams was still in office, he'd be the first one to comment. But the mayor's office is saying they're not required to comment, but the African-American community is now saying we need transparency when African-American people are involved in these types of incidents. So it's very strange back and forth that's now taken place over the past few hours.
Yeah. And I got one last thing for you here. Special Hagen says, be careful that they don't convert it to a motion for summary judgment. Ho will give you the latitude because of your pro status. So just keep that in mind.
They don't want a summary judgment.
No, I'm saying keep that in mind when you move forward. But
okay,
I have to move on because there's a lot of stuff going on. But where can people reach you, Ant, if they want to contact you for anything?
I'm usually on Facebook. Yeah, I don't broadcast on. I do a little podcast here for the people in Yonkers called the Blue Truth Podcast, and it's pretty raucous. I really go in on people. I'm actually working on a guest for this weekend. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it might. But if anyone wants to talk to me, just message me on Facebook.
There you have it.
Right.
There's a Facebook, Anthony DiMaggio. It was great having you on. I wish we had a lot more time, but it's
no worries.
So much stuff going on in the news, but I'm here for you. And when this goes forward, if on your next motion, once the judge rules on it, you come back on and let us know what's going on then. And of course, there'll be news for you to be commented on as well. There's always things going on. But
the implications for cops and civil servants more generally is enormous. This is going to be a big one if it gets through. All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
But
you're a trailblazer in the sense of hopefully setting the foundation for future cops who are involved in similar altercations at work. That's something we talk a lot about on this show.
Well, thank you.
Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks, Shane.
I'll see you guys.
Take care. Have a good one.
So yeah, it was that lawsuit's it's still going on, but it's good things in front. I think Ho would do he's going to do a fair case with him. There's a few things before we go. Check out Highlight again, worldhighlightleague.com. Check out the Chargers. I think we're still in first place. We're playing, I believe, today. Remember, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 p.m. You can catch on ESPN or on World Highlight League on YouTube, or Friday nights at 7 p.m. There we are. You see, everybody's tied with the same stuff. So everybody's playing this week. You can see today we're playing the Chargers, playing the Fireballs. And then Friday night, the Cyclones versus the Devils, 7 p.m. But highlight is the way to get away from all kinds of trouble that people, go through. The thing I wanted to end the show with is there's news about Eric Adams. Eric Adams, Tim Pearson, Jeffrey Madry. Let's play this, and then I have another thing to show you. Well, the New York City Law Department today has come out with a statement. They are now saying that they will not be representing former New York City Mayor Eric Adams in his current sexual assault lawsuit that she is a defendant in. Now, a couple of days ago, they also said they were no longer going to be representing Tim Pearson and Jeffrey Madry and their numerous sexual misconduct lawsuits. So if you don't know this, in New York City, there's a law, General Municipal Law 50K2, and under this law, the law department has the right to say whether they're going to represent you in sexual misconduct cases. Because remember, it does not fall in the scope of your duties to be doing sexual misconduct in the scope of being a police officer, a sanitation worker, a fire department employee, or anyone in the city. So this was the correct move. I don't know what new evidence they found other than Eric Adams is no longer the mayor. Because now they're going to have to fund their own legal defense. What's interesting here, Jack, GML 50K2. I was one of the first, if not the first, to just smash everyone online about this. It specifically states the corporation counsel can review any of these cases. You could sue anyone for sexual misconduct, but does it fall under the scope of their duties? On duty, you're not supposed to be doing that. I know a lot of people in the police department apparently doing this kind of stuff now. But if it doesn't fall under the scope of your duties and they think that you're guilty, they don't have to represent you. Obviously, Eric Adams himself, when he was the mayor, him and a plethora of others, I mean, you could go through the list of people, some that should also not be getting defense right now. They're in numerous sexual assault and sexual misconduct, rape cases. It's crazy stuff. The city does not have to represent you. They make a judgment. You know, they review everything and they decide whether they are or they aren't. They now have finally pulled that from Eric Adams. I can tell you Eric Adams' case, I think her name is Martha Beach Mathura. He knew this woman 30-something years ago in 1992. He was a sergeant. She was a PAA in the transit. And she was part of the Transit Guardians. Not the Guardians, the Transit Guardians. That's how they knew each other. So this whole incident occurred. He says, I don't know her. He was defaming her, all kinds of stuff. I don't believe this. His lawyer at the time, Alex Spiro, browbeat her, put her through the ringer. The city had 7 lawyers on this case. If it cost the city over $630K for Pearson and Madry, what do you think it cost for Eric Adams? You're well over $1 million, but guess what? Now they have to fund their own defense. So this was a great call, a little too late, and I think the only thing that really changed was Eric Adams not the mayor anymore. But he's gonna have to if he's got to fund his own lawsuit. He's in trouble because it's gonna be very costly. So that case, which by the way was brought only because of this law that Kathy Hochul signed for 1 year, so they could get Trump in that other case with that female that he
Eugene Carroll, yeah,
Eugene Carroll. So that was the law for that, and it caught Cuomo and Adams now has to pay for this thing. So before we go to the last thing, I know your thoughts on all of that, because this is pretty
It's amazing you mentioned E.G. Carroll in the same sentence as Eric Adams, because people forget the president was forced to pay her $88 million in a defamation settlement. So I don't think I've ever heard of someone paying $88 million in a settlement. I don't think most people are ever going to get that money in their lifetime. But the argument that Eric Adams and others are going to make is we were never proven guilty by the department. So how are you possibly going to be taking away our legal representation? And by that line of thought, they're unfortunately right. They're going to say that the department's framing them, or they never found them guilty, or there's no conditions that found them culpable for the crimes which they're being accused of. So therefore, they're entitled to legal representation. And Eric Adams bringing aboard Alex Spiro just proves how serious he is about all of this, because Alex Spiro also represented Jay-Z and Bobby Shmurda and all of these other people who got tangled up in legal cases that involved the public as well, and they were entitled to public representation. So this is someone who, by all indications, is an expert at maintaining public representation, but also a positive reputation in the light of the public, even though there's negative accusations against someone. So you can't expect legally funded public representation to end with someone like Alex Spiro involved, even though it absolutely should, unfortunately.
This is this was finally, it happened. But so I say this, here's another video we have, right? You have a video of this guy queued up. He got caught up with TMZ. They asked him. Now I just want you to.
Let me get this up real quick.
Yeah, I'm purposely ending the show with a double whammy because you guys love Eric Adams is such a character. They caught up to him about a few days prior to all of this, so it was out in California, and I just think it's hysterical just to hear him. It's just the guy lives in his own world, and it's just this guy and everything you're seeing today in the police department. And everything you saw yesterday, this guy was the mayor. This guy was partially the majority of the reason of everything. He just let everyone do whatever the hell they wanted. And
this is part of the problem with Eric Adams too, is he goes out in public, and when he's confronted by people in front of camera, he feels like he can either say whatever he wants or he doesn't have to answer the questions. Remember what happened a couple months ago when he was confronted getting on a plane? I think it was to Israel. And he's like, I'm not the mayor anymore. I don't have to answer you. Yeah. So yeah, that was one weird interaction he had. And then he had another interaction earlier this week as well, which was caught on camera by TMZ. Shout out to him for still wearing the Yankees hat, even though he's not a New Yorker.
What's happening? You landed in LA, and life after City Hall.
You like it? Is it better?
Without a doubt. There's so much going on, and when you climb the mountain of being a mayor of the greatest city on the globe, now you have the opportunity of using all of those experiences and just really enjoying life, man. It's been a real whirlwind.
What's a day in the life like? Like, what you get up? You don't got to get up so early. What's the day in the life like?
Still get up early. Still do my meditation, my breathing, my exercise, my green smoothie, and then I just go through all of the businesses. I'm dealing with a bunch of businesses now. Really helping modernize what we're doing, and it's really a real pleasure using that experience. So it's still a full day. Out of the 2 months I've been out of office, I must have been in the city about 10 days. It's been Africa, Middle East, South. So it's just been a real run.
Well, I gotta ask, man. Yes. Do you feel like Mondani's doing good so far? Or what do you think of, like, it's only been a short sample size?
2 months. I say to him over and over, and everyone, idealism collides with realism, and I think because he's seeing that the reality of government, you can't tell people who are homeless and sheep in the street. 20 people died. I think we're up to over 20 now. Looking at his decision on what he wanted to do with even mail control. At one time he was saying he didn't want it. Now he understands you need control. So he's going to learn that the idealistic approach is not the realistic approach.
The reality check that hits.
Yes, and it's real. Government is real.
Will you go Hollywood? You're here in La La Land, man. I mean, would you?
No. Enough public life, just in business.
I love it, man. Hey, blessings.
Just in business, right? He wants to modernize cities with his cryptocurrency coin and all of these drones, which are in collaboration with Palantir. It was more word salad. The one thing I do agree with him there on is that Mamdani does have to be a little bit more of a realist on some of his ideas, especially if they're getting shot down.
I'm going to say one thing, though. He mentioned 20 people died. You know how many people died on the Eric Adams watch? Go look at that number, because he was no better. This guy is the king of, he has a glass house and he's throwing rocks. You should throw it on himself, because he sounds like listen, this is great comment by PBE777. Why does nobody call out his ebonics? Adams can't pronounce words correctly. Ridiculous. He's a character. That's the best way to say it, and I think that's the best way to end today's show. Thank you again to Anthony DiMaggio for coming on and giving us an update, and also giving his take on a lot of the stuff that went on. There'll be plenty more over the weekend. I will be updating the channel, also the YouTube channel, with all the prior videos, so stay tuned with all of that. And we'll have clips and segments of today's show. So if you don't have anything else to say, Jack, I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday at 11:05 a.m. right here. Make sure you go on YouTube, Sal Greco Show. Also on Rumble. Follow us on there. On X, follow at the Sal Greco. Like, share, subscribe, all the shows. And, of course, salgreco.com. Hit the support button if you feel inclined to try to help us build here. Also, go to the store, get your Joe Cop shirt, get your Sal Greco Show mug. You could have that while you're watching the show. And, you know, here's one last thing. Joe Aldis say, let's remember the 280 homeless people died under his leadership.
And all the homeless people who were sitting down in the subway. It wasn't just about homeless people dying. It's about homeless people on the street. He did nothing to curb homelessness.
I'm telling you, he lives in a glass house, and he's throwing a rock. He's throwing it on himself, Eric. But he's such a character. So if you can, salgreco.com. Go on there. Go to IACRL.org. Become a member of the Italian American Civil Rights League. Maybe Anthony could join. And, we'll join the cause. So without any further ado, we'll see you on Monday. Everyone have a great weekend. Stay tuned. It's going to be a lot. Follow us also TikTok, Instagram, at the Sal Greco Show, at the Sal Greco. And we'll see you Monday, 11:05. Until then, we're going to sign off from South Florida, which, as you know, is a sunny place for shady people.
What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
Listen, there was a book that came out that Jasmine Ray wrote, and in the Daily News today, it was stated that there was a sexual action that happened in Borough Hall. She reported in that book, and it wasn't. You're a dark, sick person, man. You know that? You're a dark, sick person. Your name was on the byline. And there's some of you that have been covering me. You guys could part. Let me do this. Y'all could depart. Y'all could depart. Some of you have been covering me for 3.5 years. Some of you are so sick and dark, and you're the leader of that. You're one of the most dark writers that I've ever seen in this city. And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a black man, that in the book is stated that there was a sexual action in Borough Hall. That was never in the book. But that's typical of the sickness and the darkness of your sick mind. You're one of the sickest reporters I know. Go to the next question. You're a sick person.